little bit to make sure that everyone who attends shows up, give people a little bit of time before they show up. So feel free to, in the chat, type like where you're coming from, what state you're in. You can let us know as well if you've ever applied for a grant before, this grant or other grants. Feel free to let us know where you're coming from while we give it a little bit of time. All right. Ooh, Florida. I bet it's hot there. Nice. We got Arkansas, Ohio, Missouri, North Carolina. Really great to see. Chicago. Awesome. Let's see. Wisconsin, someone else from Ohio. Nice to see y'all here. Just so you know as well, there will be a recording available after. So hey, Sarah. So if you want to, if you need to leave halfway through or at any point, then you will get a recording via email afterwards. And we'll also be publishing it on our blog at strawbees.com. So you absolutely will be able to see the whole thing. We'll also offer the slides for download afterwards. So there will be plenty of ability to recap whatever you've heard here. So if you want to take notes, you can take notes, but you definitely don't have to, because hopefully we'll have that all for you at least by Friday. And then if you want to ask questions during the session, we do have the question and answer option if you want to ask general questions. If you have any questions about a specific thing we're talking about, we can stop and answer that quick question. But feel free to use the chat or use the question and answer option, and we will leave time at the end for Q&As, but we both have the ability to go over time for a little bit. So we won't leave you hanging if you have a question, but we'll definitely get to it. All right, we'll just wait one more minute and then I think we can get started. So if you're just joining, please let us know where you're from. If you've applied for any other grants, we've got people from all over the US. It's lovely to see all of y'all here. I'm Lola, I'm from Strawbees, and this is Tiffany, and we'll have like official introductions here in a second. I feel like there should be like wait music. There's no wait music option in Zoom. I need to suggest that feature to them. All right. We've got someone from Washington. Oh, that's from California, Washington Elementary. All right. Okay, brilliant. Yeah, so welcome to we're going to get started. Welcome to our webinar series. We've had one previous Grants Unlocked seminar that was specifically focused on the state, but in this specific Grants Unlocked webinar, we're going to be focusing on the Toshiba America Foundation grant. And to give you a little recap of today's agenda, I'm going to do welcome and introductions. We're doing that a little bit now. You'll get to meet the expert. I'll introduce Tiffany. Tiffany will talk a little bit about herself, and then she's going to guide us through all the processes of finding the Toshiba grant, like the application processes, what you can use this specific grant to fund, like things with Strawbees, for example. And then we will also have a Q&A session at the end. So as I said, if you didn't hear it before, you can ask questions in the chat. We'll make sure to try and get to those. But if you have any general questions, please feel free to put them in the question and answer section of the Zoom webinar, and we will definitely get to them. And we will be trying to keep to time, but we'll be fine if we run over a little bit. And if you need to leave a little bit early, it's absolutely fine. You will get a recording afterwards. So, Tiffany, do you want to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for taking the time to be here. My name is Tiffany Pace, and I'm a K-5 STEAM teacher at Crosslands Elementary in Charleston, West Virginia. I love writing grants, and in fact, this job that I currently have, every material I had in my STEAM lab I've had to write a grant for. So I understand your passion for grants, and this webinar is to help you make your STEAM dreams come true. Okay, just a little bit about the Toshiba America Foundation grant. There are two different categories. If you're kindergarten through fifth grade, you can receive up to $1,000. The deadline for this grant is October 1st, but I highly suggest you go ahead and start working on it. The sooner the better. If you are 6th through 12th grade, you can receive $5,000 and then possibly another $5,000 if you meet all the criteria and they approve what you have. Now, what I like about the Toshiba America Foundation grant, it's a very simplistic grant to write. Yes, there are several questions to answer, but it's one that you can really tell your story with, and Toshiba wants to help you. In fact, on their grant application, they put this quote: "The fact that you worry about being a good teacher means that you are already one." So believe that. Don't have imposter syndrome when you're writing a grant. Tell your story and show your passion. Okay, just in case you really get the bug like I did and want to write even more grants for your materials, there are so many grants out there, and these are just a few. The first one is the Iffy Makers Award by the Emphasis Foundation. That's one of my most favorite awards I've ever done, because not only do you receive $10,000 for materials, you also get to work with Digital Promise for a year, and that support was invaluable. There's also the ORISE teacher competitions. These are monthly competitions where you can receive prizes and even sometimes grants up to $1,500. They also have student competitions, which I love. Students can win iPads, stomp rockets, and different things. So please check that out. The Toyota grant is a wonderful one. It's more in the spring, and you find out in the summertime if you're awarded that. I just received one for a little over $5,000. There are also local community grants. Many organizations want to help schools, and sometimes no one knows where to ask. Think about gardening clubs, Chamber of Commerce, women's groups have those. There are state-funded grants. For example, in West Virginia, our Arts, Culture, and History Department has a West Virginia STEAM Power grant. So please be sure to reach out to your organizations and find out. And there are also so many corporate grants. I know Walmart has grants, Home Depot, Lowe's. So whatever you're looking for, check out those web pages and let your imagination run wild. Now, when you're writing a successful grant application, the very first thing you want to do is have a clear educational goal. What are you doing? What is the purpose of this grant? You want to make sure it aligns to what you're teaching, because most grants do ask for your administrator to sign on that this is something that you want to do. You don't always necessarily have to have the standards. For like example, the Toshiba America Foundation grant, each question is only 1,000 characters. So you don't have enough space to type in that giant content standard. And another thing, when you're writing a grant, you have to think most people who are reading the applications are not always in the education field. So one of my things I do is I pitch my grant to my husband, who's an attorney. And if he can understand it, then I know I've made it clear enough in my application for anyone to understand. You also want to make sure you have a measurable impact, because these people are giving their money to you for a project. You want to make sure that the impact is something that's clear, it's stated, and they know where their money is going to. And of course, you want to have an engaging student outcome in your project. Okay, before we begin, and you spend all your time and energy, Toshiba does not fund certain things. And here's a list. I won't read it all to you, but please make sure you check out the list before you begin your application. One thing people do get confused about is where on the bottom where it says computer hardware, that does not include microbits, Hummingbird kits, Strawbees robotics kits. That's more like laptops and different stuff. Also, it's important to note that the grant has to be awarded to a school, not an individual, and no single school can receive more than one grant at a time. Okay, when I begin a grant, because I get so excited to write grants, I always start with what, why, and how. What is the skill I'm targeting? What is it that I want my students to learn? Why am I targeting this with the materials I'm thinking about and the instruction I'm proposing? And then how am I going to assess that skill? I literally write it on a sheet of paper. From there, the web of ideas just starts flowing. But it's very important that you have a clear focus from the beginning of the target skill that you want, the instructional strategy and the materials, and then how you're going to assess it. Okay, so Toshiba has about 5 or 6 questions that you have to answer. They have a 1,000 character limit that does include spaces. So be careful on that. I always type mine in Word first, and then that way I can do the character count and adjust that. So the first one is, please summarize your project. And remember, they're going to get hundreds of applications. So think of this as your hook, your movie trailer, whatever you need to do to get them excited about your project. You want to include the title of your project in the beginning because you're going to have a catchy title, and then a brief description of what your project is, who's completing the project, what are they doing, and why this is important. You want to grab them with the basic facts that pull on their heartstrings, make them excited to want to be back in the classroom. So when you're doing this, read it, and if you're bored by it, they're going to be bored by it too. So go in and just think about making it the most exciting introduction you've ever read. Okay, question 2 is, how are you hoping your students will learn differently or how they will benefit? This can get a little confusing, but basically you're just thinking about, are you implementing a new project, a new approach to something? Are you combining subjects? For instance, one of my friends just received a Toshiba America Foundation grant for middle school, and his students are reading Frankenstein. So he got hummingbird kits with his grant so that the students could build and code a life-size Frankenstein. How will your approach increase student learning and retention? For me, I'm all about hands-on. I'm one of those kids in the classroom, if I'm just reading or doing a worksheet, my brain is like, blah, 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 squirrel. So I need something that's really tangible for me. So instead of learning about math and geometry by just drawing shapes, you could use Strawbees to actually create your shapes and see them, and from there build on and learn the different concepts in it. Okay, next one. Question 3 is, what is new or different about this idea or project? Toshiba is very specific. They want new ideas. There's even a little thing about little tips and tricks on there. So they really want you to be something that's kind of innovative, a new idea. The sky's the limit, and you all are extremely creative people. That's why you're on here. So some of the things you can ask yourself, are you giving student voice and choice? I teach in elementary school, and sometimes that's kind of pushed to the side. So if you're letting your students create their own project, if they're able to say something about their project, such as a Shark Tank style sort of thing, that's great. Are you doing a real world connection? Are you deciding how to create something that will help the environment, and then you're using that as a sustainability? Are you collaborating with the community? People love to see the community come into your classroom. So for me, one of the things I would like to do is to teach my students about aerodynamics. And I would like to bring in some retired Air Force officers so that they can teach my students about what it was like flying and have that real world experience and that personal connection. You can also do global projects. For instance, one of my favorite is Take Action Global, and they have built Lego Build the Change. So you don't have to use Legos. You could actually use Strawbees with it. But each month, your students have little videos where they learn things, and then they create an innovative, sustainable solution to the challenge that month. Are you doing a collaboration between peers around the country or around the world? Maybe you're from West Virginia like me, and you want to collaborate with someone in California or in Uruguay, South America, which is something that I like to do. Put that in there. Say how that's different, and this is a new approach, and how that's going to help your students learn and retain the information. Okay, I'm a visual learner, and I always have to have some little ideas before my brain starts thinking about what I want to do. So I use the Strawbees library, which is completely free, and to help you guys come up with some different ideas that you might want to use for your Toshiba America Foundation proposal. With math, like I said, I teach in elementary, and shapes are kind of hard for my students to understand, but you could use Strawbees to help create urban planning. They can build a whole city. You can talk about the different shapes and angles and lengths and measurements that you use. You could have littles, which we actually did this with my kindergartners. We taught them basic 2D shapes with the Strawbees, and from there, they created artwork and then told me the shapes that were inside. Okay, next. Science, that's definitely one of my passions. So with plants, sometimes we do bring in just little plants and let students dissect them. But Strawbees has some really amazing lessons where they can actually build different flowers. They have the plant physiology where they do a phototropic flower, which is one of my students' favorites to see how it's light sensitive. And then you could even do the challenge of giving your students an environment and they have to create a flower that could actually adapt or survive in that environment. So that could be one of your projects, and you can order the Strawbees robotics kits. Now in elementary, they learn about several different habitats. And unfortunately, we can't go visit all these different habitats, but how cool would it be for the students to build the animals from those habitats and have interactive habitats in your classroom? Okay, and the sky's the limit. So when you're reading a story with your students, why not have them build a robot, design it to look like the character, and then code your microbit so that it can be a smile or a frown. And when you shake it, it could respond to what's happening in the story. You could also have your students design a new amusement park ride or a structure that can withstand an earthquake. And then they have to sell you on that idea, Shark Tank style. You can limit materials. There's so many different things that you can do with the Toshiba America Foundation grant. Okay, question 4 is what, if anything, are you hoping to learn from this? They want to hear from you. They don't want your students to be the only ones growing in this project. And I think it's important for us to realize that when we try something new, we are also growing. So for me, this summer I went to Teacher Air Camp in Dayton, Ohio, and it was fabulous. I didn't know hardly anything about aerodynamics or flight. Oh my goodness, but I learned so much from that. And that is something that I want to bring back to my students. So I could talk about and be honest about, I'm not really sure and confident when I teach this, but with these materials that I'm going to get, flight simulators or little airplanes so that I can help my students understand Bernoulli's principle, gravity, wind, and things. So be honest when you're talking about it. It's okay to say, hey, I went to professional development this summer and I am so excited. They taught this new approach and I would like to implement this in my classroom because, and then just fill in the blanks. Be real in this. They don't expect you to be an expert. They want to see that you are an excited, passionate teacher who's just going to try something new and let her students open doors to their futures. Okay, question 5 says, will your project or idea involve or affect any other persons or the community in addition to your students? This isn't a requirement at all, but if you think about it, most things that you do could have an could have an outlet for someone else to be involved, whether that's family members. Maybe you're building with Strawbees and you make videos in the classroom that the students can take home and show their parents what they're doing. I've always heard if you make it to the dinner table conversation, your project is a success. You could also involve community members. If you're building a garden, invite master gardeners to come in. If you're building that urban planning for geometry, bring in an urban planner, bring in the mayor, let them talk about like, hey, in our city, we have this problem. What would you design to help with that challenge? You can also reach out to local or global programs. There's so many different things online. If you just Google it, you could become a part of that and then share that with the foundation in your proposal. They like to see that their impact from their money is going beyond your classroom walls. Okay, this question, I believe, can be a little confusing for people. They ask, will there be a longer term impact? Your answer is always yes. You always want it to go beyond your project. These people are giving their money to you, and you want to make sure their money is going to have an impact for years to come. You may be thinking, wait, I'm going to get consumable items, but of course, one thing may be non-consumable. Like if you use Strawbees or microbits or hummingbird kits or something like that, those are non-consumable. If you're getting the little saws that make do saws, those are non-consumable. make sure you point out anything that you're getting that are non-consumable items that you're going to use from year after year. If you do have something such as construction paper or tape, how are you going to replenish those items? Maybe you could say in there that you're going to reach out to your school's PTO or PTA, and they've offered to help you with that. How will your students continue learning? I personally think that there's twofold on this. You can talk about the foundational skills your students are going to get from this and how they're going to continue their learning because they've had this foundational skill. You can also talk about how you're going to continue this project in the future. For example, next year, are you going to do the same project with the students and be able to use the same materials and maybe learn from this experience to make next year's experience even better? Okay, they do have a budget sheet that they want you to use. Please make sure you use their budget sheet. They're also very, very nice. If you mess up the budget sheet, if you can't attach the budget sheet, they will you can reach out to them. They'll help you. It's not going to be a scary process for you. In fact, my friend who was just awarded a grant, his budget sheet didn't get attached. So they just simply email and say, hey, is there any way you can send us your budget? He sent his budget to them, and 2 days later, they told him he was awarded one. So one of my oh, and if you look on there, if you're grades 6 through 12, it shows you when you can ask for an additional 5,000. So keep that in mind. When you're creating a budget sheet, if you're doing something like Strawbees, Make Do Sauce, Hummingbird Kits, you can reach out to those vendors and ask those companies for a quote. I think if you put a quote attached to your proposal, it shows that you've really thought this through, that you've taken the time to reach out, make sure exactly how much you're going to be charged. I think that gives like a little woo, bonus. Also, again, I put this on the side. They make sure you really, really look at what they do not fund. Again, please, your time is precious. Do not waste time writing a proposal for something they don't fund because they just won't fund it. Even if it's the most amazing proposal they've ever seen, if it's listed there, they won't fund it. The next thing that they ask in the application is the name of the teacher applying, which is probably you who are on this, your email address, and then tell about yourself and the courses you teach. This is your chance to shine. Tell them who you are, what grades and subjects you teach, why you chose to teach this, and tell a little blurb about your passion. So in this, they want to know what makes you spark, what you're excited about, how you're going to grab your students' curiosities. Was there an experience that you had this past school year that you want to build upon this school year? Was there something that you saw that you just can't wait to try in the classroom? Make sure you just really shine for yourself on this. And then this one, I think is said actually as an optional question. One thing that I found, anytime you write a grant, make sure you complete the optional questions. That just shows that you are dedicated, you're willing to take the time to answer every single question they put out there. This question says, please add any additional thoughts, information, or endorsements you believe may help you understand why this is important for you and your students. Tell your students stories. There's not a lot of space in the application to tell if your students are minorities. My students come from a low SES. Tell who these kids are, why you're reaching out for these materials. Do they have the same STEM experiences? Do they have the same science experience, engineering experiences? Share what your students may have already accomplished. So for me, in my application last year, I actually I think I've received this grant 4 or 5 times. I put like some of the stuff we've done. So I was asking for paper robotic kits, and I talked about how we work with students in Uruguay, South America, to learn about sustainable practices. Tell them that. They love hearing what you're doing in the classroom and how this project that you are proposing is going to take it even a step further. Also, if you have a goal or goals that you've reached or want to reach, put that in there. Let them see how determined you are to make this happen for your students. Some other things that you have to have, that's what I always say, try to get your grants, start working on your grants early. You need the funding principle. Don't freak out. That's just a drop-down menu with whether it's STEM, science, ELA, whatever you want to do. The subject that your project is going to utilize, the grades affected, and your school's address. You're also going to need a tax exempt form. At my district, it used to be within the schools, but then it moved to the district. So that took me 2-3 weeks to actually get a physical copy because you have to upload that to your application. You also need a principal endorsement letter. Don't freak out. This is probably just mine's always just a one-page thing about who you are. She usually does a quick little blurb. Oh, she's a STEM teacher. She does amazing projects. I'm excited for this project, and just a little bit that she's or he is going to support you in this. I've heard from a lot of people who've applied for grants, and when they get the money, they can't do it because their principal is not on board with it. So basically, the principal endorsement letter and the principal signature form, which is provided, you just have to print it off, sign it, and upload it, is basically to make sure this project is going to receive the support from the administration, that when they send you the check, they're going to help you buy the materials and support you as you do it. Okay, so I was so excited last year. I was able to go to the Galapagos Islands as a Grosvenor teacher fellow with National Geographic and Lindblad expeditions. So when I came back, my students were fascinated by the animals. I had received a grant to get the Strawbees robotics kits. And as I said, animals, the environment, habitats is a huge part of elementary school. So my students researched animals from the Galapagos Islands and then built them with Strawbees. They had to code them to make them move. The flamingo, its little foot moves, and the shark, its tail moves. And then they covered them up. They made trifold poster boards that had different information. They had to give presentations on that. So that could easily be something that you write your Toshiba America Foundation proposal for. So I wanted to give you guys a little example of one of the ones that I did. Another thing that's so crucial, like I said, I received 4 or 5 of the Toshiba America Foundation grants. Don't forget to complete your final report for your word proposal. I make it a habit to try and send it at least a week or 2 in advance. Now, life happens. Totally get it. Sometimes maybe there was something going on at your school, there was a personal thing. Reach out to Toshiba in advance to let them know that you may need an extension. They understand, but if you don't turn this in, you're never going to have the opportunity to apply for another one. Another thing that I found is they love it when you share pictures and videos on social media. I try to do it from the back so my students' faces aren't in it, or I just show their hands working on the project and just tag them. That says, hey, look what I'm doing in the classroom. This is so much fun. Thank you, Toshiba America Foundation, for this amazing opportunity. That little bit that maybe took you 10 minutes to post will really go far in the future if you want to apply again. And if you want to contact us, I am one of those people, I want to help you write your grant. You're not going to annoy me if you email me. Feel free. And then also, if you want to see some of the things that I've done in my classroom, you can go to @STEMWithTiff on Instagram or LinkedIn. And I have tons of pictures and videos. You can even ask me, hey, I saw this. What did you get for those materials? How would you write a grant for that? Feel free to reach out to me because I love this. I feel like I've created my dream classroom through grants and just learning from others. And I want to help you guys do the same.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Tiffany. That was so much amazing information about like all the different steps that people can take. I want to encourage anyone, like if you have an idea for a project and you want to like run it past us or anything like that, feel free to add that to the Q&A. We did have one question earlier, which was, are the MetaQuest headsets okay?
I think that would be. I think when they say computer hardware, they mean laptops and computers. I think they don't want to just spend money on laptops, iPads, and computers. But if you're getting something that's an extension of that, just really explain how that's going to help your kids.
Okay,
And the
good,
goals
good.
you can reach.
One thing I was thinking about while I was watching the presentation, and that might be relevant for this, is when you're doing a project, it sounds like you've done all kinds of different like projects involving different STEM tools. Is it a good idea, like maybe to combine, like in your application, like say you want to use Strawbees, but you also want to use another STEM tool? Can you combine more than one tool, like pitch that as part of the application if it all
Oh,
fits within the
absolutely.
range?
You can definitely do that. You can put on there if you get to quotes, you can put that in there. You can explain, I've written it where I've had 10 things listed. You can also, if you have materials, you can say last year I was awarded this grant, I received these materials. This year I would like to add on to it with this. So then anything like that is absolutely acceptable.
And so you can, if you get one grant, you can build on that in future grant applications as
Yeah.
well.
Yes, definitely go for it. You're never going to know unless you try for it.
Awesome.
And then just a question, can you explain the maximum amount that they will allow again? Okay, if you're kindergarten through fifth grade, you can apply for up to $1,000. And those applications only once a year and they're due on October 1st. You usually find out if you were awarded a grant in December and you receive your check late December. So this project, whatever you propose, will probably have to take place in the spring if you're kindergarten through fifth grade. If you are 6th through 12th, there are 4 dates that you can apply for a grant. In the application, at your initial proposal can only be 5,000. If it needs to be a little more, there is another window that you can apply for additional funding. You just have to meet their criteria and requirements.
Awesome. And then another person asked, can multiple teachers from the same school apply for the grants individually?
They can apply for the grants, but only one will be awarded to your school each year. But if you have multiple teachers, you could even think about doing a combined grant. And both teachers, like how you're going to do this cross-curricular or between grade levels, you could even try that approach if you want to.
Awesome. And someone just asked, can we apply through the PTA or PTSA?
It has to be a teacher actually applying, but the PTA could do it. Just make sure it's not an after-school club or an event. They want something that's going to be done in the classroom.
Awesome. One thing that I had thought about, especially when you were going through that section about, admitting that you don't know something and that this is an opportunity for you to learn as well. We've been thinking about and seeing a lot of teachers talk about, learning coding and learning like with microbit and Strawbees and like being a little bit intimidated because they haven't had a computer science background and haven't got involved in coding. Is that like, might be a great opportunity to like say, I want to teach kids, start teaching them coding, and this is a great opportunity for me to learn as well. Is that what you did with the Galapagos one?
Yes, that's what I did because coding is definitely, I'm still a novice. I am not an expert at all in coding, but I think it's important for you to say, hey, I'm still at the beginning stages. I want to learn alongside my students. We're going to learn how to code. We're going to learn how to make these motors move to our desired wherever we want them to go. And I think that's important so that they see that you're willing to try new things, that you're not just going to give up. And I think it's really important that you do learn with your students. I think that's something that's just invaluable in the classroom.
Awesome. And someone asked, I teach multiple GT grades and have multiple projects I could use Strawbees with. Is it better to focus on one area or share all the areas that I would use them for?
If you can fit it in, if you're doing a project you can actually say like in kindergarten, I'll do this. In first grade, I'll do this. You can do stuff like that. In fact, that's what I did with one of my grants I recently applied for. Just remember, you only have 1,000 characters, but you can say this one material I'm going to purchase is going to help me in all these ways. And I think that's very impactful.
And Strawbees does scaffold, like we've heard it being used as early as kindergarten all the way up to into high school, actually. But our lessons in Strawbees classroom go up to grade level 8. So that's good to know. Someone else said, I work in a K through 8 school. If I apply for a grant for K through 5 and one for middle school, can we only get one or the other?
Probably one or the other. I think it's one per school is the way they do it.
Okay.
Actually, honestly, reach out to Toshiba and ask them that specific question. They get back to you immediately. So I would ask about that because that's definitely something that's a little different.
Awesome. And another person asked, I think you kind of covered this a little bit. Any ideas for Strawbees and renewable energy or climate change using microbits and the servos?
Oh, there are so many on the library. You can go onto the library. I have to just create an account. It's completely free. They have them with solar energy. You can make different solar energy things. There's wind energy. So there are so many things that you can use Strawbees for that could just cover everything with renewable energy and climate change. That would definitely be a great one.
Awesome. I think another one that I was thinking of, um, what do you think is the biggest difference in terms of applying for something like the Toshiba, which is national, to like your experience in like local and state grants?
I will say that when you apply to a national grant, a lot of times your chances are smaller in receiving the grant because so many people are applying. You do have to make it very specific, make it exactly what you want it to be. So for instance, the one from the Arts, Culture, and History department here in West Virginia, I feel like I have a better chance because not as many people are applying. But again, it kind of depends on how many awards are going to be awarded for that grant. Each grant is different. Toshiba has just the basic questions once you do it. Um, it's not extremely detailed. You don't have to have a lot of like background information. You don't have to have a lot of research. So really look at the different ones that you use. But anytime you write a grant, I keep a Google Drive folder of the different grants that I've written because sometimes you can pull the same wordage and stuff, describing yourself, describing your students. That's going to save you time as you move forward. I also have a list of things that I've seen on webinars and professional developments of different materials that I would like to have. And then I'm always constantly thinking about different projects I could do. So when a grant does come open, you're not starting from ground zero again. You already have, you've saved what you've written about your school, your students, your desires, your goals, and then you can just pull from that. And then grant writing becomes something kind of addictive. You just want to go for it because there's so many amazing opportunities out there for our students.
Awesome. Someone asked, do they have a limit on how many they fund? And we actually forgot to bring that up.
Yes, I try to kind of look, but I didn't see an official answer. So I'm not sure. I think it depends each year. You can ask for up to thousands. One year I asked for 500. One year it was like 250. So it just basically depends on what people are asking for and how much money they have in the pot that year.
Yeah, I think we did a little bit of research, and it's definitely more than just one awardee every grant
Yes,
cycle, but we don't know how many it is. Like
right.
it's unknown. Someone else said, I would love to hear more about the Nat Geo program you did, and I'm curious about the other grants that you applied for. So we did cover a little bit of that before, but if you want to talk a little bit more about the Nat Geo program, that'd be pretty
Okay,
cool.
the Grosvenor Teacher Fellowship is absolutely fabulous. The application will open up in the fall. It's a 2-year fellowship program with National Geographic and Lindblad expeditions. So your first year, you go on an amazing expedition with National Geographic on a Lindblad expedition ship. And then and you have some different deliverables that you are required to submit. And then the next year you do a student project. So I'm playing on my Galapagos, and then this year they're going to do animals here in West Virginia. So that's a fabulous one. You can go on national, just type in, I'll type Grosvenor Teacher Fellowship.
Mhm.
You guys can Google that. And then for grants, if you Google grants that are available, there's some amazing different grants out there. Gosh, there's a list somewhere of like 400 different grants and professional development opportunities. Go for every single one that you can. You're going to surprise yourself at how many different ones that you can get. I know I suffer from severe imposter syndrome. I was like, there's no way they're going to fund mine. Oh, I can't write this grant. The more you write, the better you're going to get at it. Just like we tell our students, just keep going. You're going to get this done. Also, with me, sometimes my imposter syndrome is, oh, I'm sure I'm not explaining this enough. Oh, I'm just doing basic block coding. They're going to fund someone who's doing something else. Don't let that intimidate you. Just say what you want to do and go for that. Um, I think so many times we think someone else is doing something better, but we haven't given ourselves the chance to shine. And I think that's so important when you're writing a grant. I let my students know when I'm writing a grant. Sometimes they help me. They give me ideas for grants that they've seen online, and we write it together. And that's just then the importance of writing and how important it is to learn how to write correctly and deploying your audience. So definitely involve your students in it. If you have parents that are wanting to help you write grants, go for it, because sometimes they even know people that have connections elsewhere too.
That got me thinking and wondering, like, what is the, I'm pretty sure I had a little bit of a look at the application, but what is the role of like videos and pictures and things like that in terms of grant applications? Like, do you get a chance to add those things? Does it help or?
Most of the time in the application, you can't. But as you're working on your project, please submit online videos and photographs. Make sure you're being protective of your students' privacy though, because there's some weirdos out there, but
Yeah.
they love seeing that. Also during your end of application, when you do the final review, I usually make a Google Drive and upload videos and different photographs, and I send the link to them. So that way, if they want to open it and see it, and they've shared that a lot, they've really enjoyed seeing like the kids' reactions when something moves the right way, or how excited they get when their project comes to life. So share that with them. They want to see that excitement that you're getting to witness in the classroom.
Nice. I'm curious to know because I mean, you've applied for lots of different grants with lots of different types of tools. What do you think in particular about Strawbees makes it helpful when you're applying for these grants?
With Strawbees, I think it's important that such a wide range of ages can use it, because so many times, like, this is such, you'll buy a material that's really good for 3 through 5 or middle school or high school. But I use Strawberries from kindergarten all the way to 5th grade. Now, the robotics and coding is more 3rd through 5th grade. But in my application, I talked about how I would let my younger students use it just to build so they get comfortable with the engineering design process. So when they move to 3rd through 5th grade, they're going to be ready to start the coding process. So they'll already be able to build, and now they're going to add movement into their designs.
Nice, nice.
And it's
And
non-consumable. That's so important that you can use these year after year. They want to see that their money is going to something that's going to last for a while.
yeah, and I think from what when I've spoken to other teachers as well, like when they've gotten a kid or it's lasted them quite a long time, like and throughout many, many student uses.
Oh, and speaking of that, when you're writing your grant, make sure you think of storage too. So in my STEM lab, I'm going to show you guys this. In my grant, I actually asked for art kits for storage so that my student groups can have their own materials inside. And this just opens up and all the materials are in there. So that's one thing. When I first started writing grants, I forgot about the storage and how I was going to organize it in my classroom. And that's really important to make sure you put it.
Nice, nice. And then that can also, if you get some materials from one grant and then you apply for a follow-up, if you missed the storage solution in the first one, you could always try with the second one as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love
Um,
doing the kids'
go ahead.
story. Like, make sure you tell them your kids' stories. And then afterwards, make sure you explain, continue that story with them. And I think as you build a rapport, they're going to notice you more as you apply.
Someone wanted to know the brand of the art kits that you got. We're
Oh,
also gonna have a blog about ways to organize Strawbees. So
these are just art bin, and I just bought them on Amazon as part
yeah,
of the grant.
cool. One thing that I'm wondering, like, is before you, I don't know if you can kind of go back to like your headspace when you started applying for your first ever grants and getting like really starting and figuring it out, trying to figure it out. Is there one thing that you kind of wish you knew before you applied for that first grant?
Yeah, I was completely overwhelmed. I'm not going to lie. My first few grants were absolutely horrible. I think I tried to go too big. I think I tried to make my project something that was way too big. Make this attainable for you. We know in the classroom, everything's going to go haywire throughout the year. And if you think it's going to take 3 months, it's probably going to take more like 6 months to finish. So my biggest thing is make this project small enough so that you know you're going to be able to finish it, and you're going to be able to finish it and still have a smile on your face. Right now I have a friend who's writing a grant, and sometimes she gets frustrated. She's like, oh, I'm not going to have enough time to finish this. And so we worked on making this smaller. So really, really work on just like what is kind of like have blinders on. This is a project I'm going to do. And sometimes you may think, oh, it's not going to be big enough for this. You're not going to think it's great enough. Your words can make it sound like the greatest project in the world, even if it's just a tiny project. What matters is the impact you're going to have on your students.
That makes a lot of sense because I remember when we were looking at the Strawbees lessons that you pulled through, and it was just like the earthquake simulator. You know, that's just one project. And I was like, oh, you could do a whole project just out of that one lesson. And I think I would have that same mentality that it's got to be like 5 different lessons and it needs to be 10 different things, but maybe not so much.
No, my Galapagos one was just tiny. This is what we're doing. This is what we're doing. This is what we're doing. And at first I was like, oh, this isn't going to be enough. It should be something that lasts the whole school year. It doesn't have to. They just want a project that's going to be engaging, that's different, it's unique, and it's going to have a great outcome for you and your students.
Awesome. Someone's asked, since the readers aren't from education backgrounds, how much detail do you think we need to go into to explain what things like Strawbees and other equipments are and do?
Okay, so for Strawbees, I did say that they are like straws and connectors. Use simple language. It doesn't have to be really long because again, you don't have a lot of space. But you can say they're going to use the straws and the connectors to build. You can I don't think you have to explain in super detail because they can also just go and Google what it is. More so, just don't use a lot of educational lingo. We know what certain things are, like Elmo. My husband really thought it was a Sesame Street character that I was talking about in one of mine. So make sure you're not doing that. If you're using anything that you know that you use and other teachers would know, but the person across the street wouldn't know, don't use that. You don't have to really explain a ton of stuff. Just say, I'm using Strawbees. They're like this to do this. And I think that's good enough.
Awesome. If there's, we're just about to come up on time, so if there's any other last questions, we'll give you guys a second. But I think that this has been really great. Like we've gone through several of the steps, like we've been able to handle a couple of the questions that you all had. Tiffany's very, very graciously offered the ability for you to contact her and ask her questions. So if you're kind of working through a project idea or need a little bit more assistance on that, and thank you so much, Tiffany, like for
Oh,
offering
no,
that.
this
Like
was
that's
wonderful. Thank you. No, I really appreciate the opportunity to help others receive grants. One thing a lot of people, grant people have said is a lot of people are using like ChatGPT and AI to write their grants. I will say it's okay to get ideas from that, but please put it in your own words because you don't want an application that's going to look just like someone else's. Make sure if you take from that, you do a little more with it.
yeah, and you definitely like ChatGPT is designed to be general and you want to be that you want to have that personal touch as well.
Right.
And I want to also add for everyone here, if you're considering getting Strawbees for your grant proposal or using a grant proposal to get Strawbees, like you can get a quote, like our team will get back to you super quickly. Just keep in mind the grant deadlines and you already have plenty of time to prepare, but we'll definitely get back to you super quickly to help you, because we want you to be able to actually use them as well, and get them in your classrooms. So yeah, brilliant. If there's no other questions, like I said, you will get the slides and you will get the recording afterwards, and any other details. Do we I think we're actually going to have a blog about different ways to store Strawbees in our back to school, so if you're signed up to the email list you will get that. I think you will be signed up, so you will get that in your email inbox. We're also going to be having a no code coding webinar coming up, so we're going to, if you're interested in like teaching students how to code but you don't know anything about computer science yourself, we have like talked to a lot of educators who haven't had a computer science background and have managed to teach coding without that computer science background, so we're going to also be having that in the future. Brilliant. Well, if there's any last words that you want to have, Tiffany, or anything else you want to
I would
say?
say I'm really proud of you guys because I know how hectic it is back to school. And you guys took the time just to learn more about how to help your students. So already you've won an award because you're absolutely amazing. So just keep going. Feel free to reach out to me. I will help you. I will help you find grants. If this one doesn't work for you or if you don't get it, I will continue to help in any way that I possibly can.
Brilliant. Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. And thank you again, Tiffany, for being so awesome. And I hope that everyone has a good rest of your day. All right. Bye, everyone.